Why y'all working? How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
It's Alairé. How you doing, my brother?
You know how it is. We always stay working, grinding today. We have a great guest, great show for y'all. So I appreciate everybody tuning in.
We got Why Y'all Working, a tech radio show, podcast, just a good space where we can share in good energy, good positivity, and learn. The core of this podcast is to understand and dissect why people work, what's their attention and attitude towards working and contributing. Everyone wakes up at 9, wakes up earlier, and calls off at the end of the day. But we got a very special guest, as mentioned, Derek Maultsby Jr., corporate attorney, startup supporter, Techstars mentor, keynote speaker. Currently calling in from the beautiful Pittsburgh, repping the black and yellow. Someone that really prides himself on the ability to work with people, humanize the experience, whether you're an entertainment firm signing a deal with an artist or you're a startup just trying to find how to create your first initial pitch. Derek is a person that I trust, when I need to reach out to, when I was going through the transitions of closing down my first company and looking into corporate America. And you still, to this day can be counted on as a resource for countless founders. So without better ado, I'd love to introduce and ask the first question: why are you working? To Derek Maltz.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's so important to me to hear that you feel that I remain accessible. It's the duty of us to support us. So always, brother, always, and a layer that goes to you now too. But man, why am I working? Why am I working? That's a big. See, it's such a simple question, but it's a big question. What I tell people a lot is something I always wanted to do was invest in people and relationships. Every day as a corporate attorney, I get to do exactly that. Right, my clients, the founders that I work with, the CEOs, the chief legal officers, everything like that. I get to invest in what they're doing. I get to invest in them. I'm fortunate that a lot of my clients have become my friends and become like family because of that investment. Because investment works both ways. They invest in me too, trust me with their business. Trust me as an advisor, as somebody they look to in those tough times. So it's been a true blessing, I think, to find a career path where I'm able to just be able to invest in those relationships. And my big ethos is always going to be: if you invest in people, you invest in relationships, and you worry about money second, the money will eventually come, and things will work themselves out. I think too many people are transactional focused. They focus on the money first, and they miss, I think, a true piece of life, which is creating deeper connections and finding other ways, maybe outside of just transactions, to collaborate with people and to connect with people and to find synergies in our community.
I agree. That's something that, I had to learn and bump my head on so many times. There's like that famous saying as an entrepreneur: ask for investment, get advice, ask for advice, get investment. And just like talking to our first initial angel investor, someone that's supporting the stream, gave great advice in our first episode. If y'all haven't watched it, please check it out with Dwight James III. We were connecting after a pitch event that I prepared the pitch 10, 15 minutes before. In BW Tech, we were doing our like, we didn't change so much out of the pitch deck. 5 minutes before the
That
event,
was
thank
it.
God it was on campus. And he asked, at the end of the conversation, just by his car, like, well, what would you do if I gave you 40K? We didn't say anything. Didn't bring up money. Didn't bring up what we need. Didn't bring up the fact that we didn't even know, how we're going to work on this through the summer. I think even I asked him, like, do you have any potential jobs? Like, I asked this our first investor if he had internships or new people that can give me an internship so I could work on my first company. And that just changed the narrative to where when I could explain what 40K would do, over X amount of time, later that night, him and one of his partners emailed us saying they want to put that first amount in. So you've built again a reputation now off of being authentic, off of connecting with people. And when we first jumped on this call just to reconnect, I mean, you carry yourself in a way where there's no fluff, no need to lie or pump things up, because we're people at the end of the day. And I mean, you show up as authentically as
I
possible.
appreciate your quote. Like I wrote down, duty of us to support us, because it's very uncanny and interesting because like in this day and age, it's very hard to find a lot of minorities and just black folk in general that are willing to be upfront and honest about the current plight of black people in America, let alone minorities in America, right? We're looking at it from being the lens of entrepreneurs and investors in the VC industry. We are the demographic of a demographic within an industry that is a minority within our industry. We receive the least amount of dollars, right? What is your thought about that quote in reference to us receiving the minimal amount of investment dollars in the industry today, as far as black and brown entrepreneurs go and other minorities that are vying for these from again minority investors? When that money isn't necessarily coming from us and coming from somebody else, it's a little bit harder to do that. So just wanted to get your thoughts on how that kind of comes into play for you.
It's a journey, right? Like the story of Black people in America is a journey, and we have great advantages over our predecessors, the folks that have come before us, right?
Right.
And we have great disadvantages to our future our future descendants that will come after us. And I think our job in this moment is just to move the ball forward along this journey as much as we can and contribute in the ways that we can, whatever that may look like, right? For y'all, I mean, it's a part of what y'all are doing here, right? Creating community, creating dialogue, creating education. I think when you look at the minority investors around the country and what they're doing just that, right? They're moving the ball forward. Can they help everybody? No, none of us can. There's never going to be enough for everyone. They're providing access, they're providing support, they're providing education, and they're helping move that ball forward, which will create success stories, right? More than came before us, and hopefully less than will come in the future. And with that success, we'll create new angels, we'll create new emerging fund managers, we'll create new serial entrepreneurs, and we'll help continue to snowball this thing. I mean, I look at the law, right? You think about corporate lawyers, right? In America, our numbers are drastically low. In the city of Pittsburgh, we're at about 3% of lawyers that work at law firms in the city of Pittsburgh are Black. 3%. The city of Pittsburgh has a 20% Black population. So, you think about how long have Black people been able to be lawyers, right? And the slow progress that has occurred over time, and we're still not that far. But once again, you think about how long have Black people been able to be lawyers, right? And the slow progress that has occurred over time, and we're still not that far. But once again, I'm in a moment in time on this journey, and my job is to do my best to push that ball forward for other Black lawyers in the future who come to sit in the same seat that I sit in, to have more of a voice and to look around and see more of them. I think the real message is it's up to us, right? That's why I said that. It's up to us to do our little part. If everybody does their little part, you make great impact. And I think when you look around this community, there are so many advocates and so many amazing people doing their part, and inspiring others to do theirs. I'm hopeful that when I'm old and gray, I'm 29 now. When I'm 69, 79, I can look back and I can say, wow, man, look how far we pushed the ball down the path as a community, as an ecosystem, as a people in this country. But it's not going to be easy. It's never been easy for us. We've always had to do twice as much to get half as far. I'd argue maybe it's 10 times as much to get.
It's not an argument. It's facts.
I'd argue that, right? But it's our story, and I mean, we are a people of perseverance. A people of great resourcefulness. We've always taken less and done more. We've created some of the greatest recipes in the country based on that, and created a culture based on that, right? I have little doubt that our success is inevitable as a people, and we will continue on this journey and continue pushing that ball down the path.
Okay. And how would you say you are working to, support, Black and brown entrepreneurs like us, and then also, those people that you say are following in your footsteps to eventually sit in your chair, right? Are you mentoring the next generation, or Are you investing in businesses yourself? What does that look like for you?
My way up.
Okay.
Yeah, so businesses and founders that look like us, black, brown, honestly, all underrepresented founders. But as a black man, I definitely look to work with and help black founders as much as I can. But I work with a lot of different underrepresented founders underneath that meaning, and it's important to me to just be accessible. I think that there's a barrier when it comes to corporate legal advice and access. And I think Michael could speak to it personally. We met. He had a few questions. We tapped in together. Spent maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just talking. There was no expectation. There was no dollars, exchanging hands or anything like that. He had questions, and I had, I was going to give him the best answers I could possibly give him, and that accessibility. And I think just, being honest and being open is really, really important. And I tell people all the time, feel free to go get a second opinion, a third opinion, all of that, right? And I mean, I've had clients through the years. One recently, they're in a certain industry. There's an attorney in that industry that is the person you're supposed to use, and I helped them get to a certain point, and then they decided that it was actually better. Maybe they go use this certain person in that industry that was a little bit more connected to their industry specifically, that they felt could help them in ways that I couldn't. That makes a lot of sense. I'm here if you need anything. You know what I mean? I'm in your corner. And I tell people all the time, whether you choose to work with me or not, I'm a resource. And I think that's showing up for the community, right? I think that accessibility, that openness, not making it transactional, investing in the people, I think is really important. I practice law a little differently. I try to not hide the ball. I try to make things predictable. I try to make things accessible. I try to make things as affordable as possible. I'm not trying to get rich off of you. That's not my goal. You're not somebody I'm trying to get rich off of. I want to be in the boat with you, and I want to help you. And I will always be upfront about what things are going to cost, what's realistic, what's not realistic, et cetera and so forth, and work with you to make sure that we're getting to where we need to be. As far as the next generation of lawyers behind me, I mentor probably a handful of law students, and then also some younger attorneys. One of my mentors had this saying, each one teach one, which isn't really a saying that he could probably trademark, right? Like that's been around for a minute. He always said, you go down to the jeweler and look how many Rolexes they got. They don't just got one; they got a bunch of Rolexes, and they ain't running out. So just because you are helping somebody else get their Rolex doesn't mean that there's not a Rolex for you, right? Because what he's trying to talk about is that scarcity mindset that was sort of put into black folk, that there could only be one, and if there's somebody else, they're going to replace you. That's not the truth. Not having that scarcity mindset and having a mindset of abundance, and knowing that I can help the next brother or sister get what she's after, and it won't impact my bag. And that's really important, I think, to just keep that mindset, because it is hard, when you're some of the only black people in these spaces. You sometimes get competitive amongst each other, but really the competition is made up, right? It's fictionalized in our heads, and we should be supporting each other. We're all on the same team, and I definitely try to lead in that way, in terms of bringing up the next generation behind me. And a huge piece of it, man, when you work at a law firm, is just building your business, right? Building your brand, building your business, bringing in more money for the firm. The more business you have, the more say you have in how that business gets done, right? My ultimate goal is to sit here, 20 years from now, which 20 years from now I'll be like almost 50 years old, right? And look back and say, I built a team of attorneys that represents the clients in the community that we were trying to serve, right? Underrepresented attorneys to service underrepresented founders. Having representation in your representation is a powerful thing. We communicate with each other in different ways. We understand the stresses and the pressures that we're going through, and we can really trust in a different way. I think. I just think there's power in knowing your team as a whole, from a holistic standpoint, represent you in one way or another. I'm always going to bring the best person to the table for my team to work on something. Because at the end of the day, like the result is what matters. But I try my best always to bring the most diverse team to the table for that reason. But as I grow, as my book grows, my business grows and all that kind of stuff, I'll have more of a say over who we hire, adding to the team, things like that. So, that's a goal of mine that I keep in the back of my head. And, when you go to the why you working, right? Well, I'm working, I think, to create that future, right? To create that impact and to make sure that, I'm able to not only benefit the, minority innovation ecosystem in the ways that I've been doing, but to also, benefit the practice of law, and beyond that, our community. Entrepreneurship, can look like tech startups, but it could also look like opening a bodega or, a restaurant on the corner. And those folks need very similar, legal assistance and accessibility as a tech startup. They need help forming their company and making sure that their lease is right and that their contracts with their service providers are appropriate and all that kind of stuff. I'm speaking at a conference tomorrow, it's a conference called Barrel and Flow. It's one of the largest Black brewery festivals in the country. Here in Pittsburgh is where it's hosted, and I'm happy to get there and give out that free game, right? And educate and inform Black folk that look like us, trying to start their own breweries, trying to run their own businesses, things like that. They need the same access. So I think it's also being mindful of the whole community and everybody that makes up that sort of entrepreneurial ecosystem that does look like us, and being there to support them too.
Definitely want to get into, and we'll talk about like your upbringing. I was able to see came from Arkansas, really found different places in Pennsylvania to call a home, and you found Pittsburgh and this new exciting event that's happening tomorrow. Just to continually speak to people and help advance them. The point I do want to bring up was in what you said made me think of an event. And, at Yall Working, we're always willing to shout out businesses and organizations and podcasts, doing great work too. At an EYL event at South by, I think a year ago, there was this idea, especially around crypto, that was brought up on a panel, and this connects really deeply. I'm gonna bring that point in real soon to what you're saying is that for a lot of Black communities, technical innovation, new ideas, inventions, ways to progress yourself and your family forward, we're usually the last people on the totem pole to hear about it. Whether it was, healthcare programs for people to be able to start thinking about their health. There is this initial superstition. Are people really providing the best for me? With COVID, we saw a large group of people not take this seriously. And now we're dealing with the impacts of long COVID and so many different things that are changing within this world today. So I just wanted to highlight, when you think about how the legal space is currently, and what industries do you feel as though, our people sometimes might be the least informed or might come in with a preconceived notion of how things go. And, they have to learn, they have to struggle to get to a point of success.
In every sector, we're a disadvantaged population. We're an underserved population. And realistically, we're not that many generations, removed from obviously segregation. There are people still walking this earth that lived through that. And then, prior to segregation, you had slavery. I think we still have a long way to go, and that's why mentorship is really important because, you see it a lot of times. You show up to a workplace and nobody looks like you. There's amazing white people and people of other colors that are great allies and mentors. Some of my mentors within my firm are older white men, and they take their time and their effort to invest into me, and I'm appreciative of it. And my career wouldn't be as far as it is without them. But that's not the majority. You know what I'm saying? And I had to go look for that. You know what I mean? Not everybody is as lucky to be able to find those champions, those advocates, and then more than anything, those sponsors, right? And I don't think we talk about sponsorship enough and its importance in elevation. Those people that are in the rooms that you're not in, that are saying, "Nah, Derek's the guy. Like we gotta promote him. We gotta advance him. And in the startup world, right? Those are people that are in different rooms with different investors or potential sales targets saying like, no, like this company, that's it. Like this founding team, they're it. And you can find that in any industry, right? I think in corporate America, generally the barrier to there's a barrier to entry, right? And there's not enough support for us. Now, I know certain cities and demographics are a little different. Um, so I lived in Arkansas, but I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Like I said, it's 19-20% black in the city of Pittsburgh. So it's a majority white city. And so you feel that, right? You feel that in the working population and things along those lines. And when I thought about, potentially moving, and I had lived in Arkansas, I had lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and I had spent time in Jackson, Mississippi, and living in those different places. I wanted to come back to Pittsburgh to start practicing law because I felt that I could move the needle here and I could be a part of why the city grows and not just be another person who leaves, right, and takes their talents elsewhere. So it's a deep question you ask, but it's a relatively simple answer too, right? Like it's everywhere. It's in all industries, and I think brings it back to it's up to us to support us. You know what I mean? Because no matter what you're doing, no matter how small you feel like it is, I am sure there is some way that you could turn around and support somebody behind you, or look to your side and support somebody next to you. And Mr. Rogers is a big thing in Pittsburgh. He always says, "Look for the helpers," and I think to flip that and be the helper, right, and look for the people that need help is really, really important.
Absolutely. I mean, and in helping people, you never realize, listening, just hearing someone complain about something, saying yes when they're kind of explaining what's going on in their mind, and sometimes seeking that validation so that they can feel much more confident in the work that they do. That transcends race, that transcends gender, that transcends so many things other than seeing someone as a person who needs help. Um, I really appreciate, how you found this goal of yours. I was going to compare, Pittsburgh, an industrial city, to Baltimore because we have a lot of those
Yeah.
similarities. Like the key that you mentioned that I think is something we've realized, and hopefully a lot of entrepreneurs and people building businesses need to hear is, establish a presence. Like, take your work seriously. I was just at an event and I just told some high school kids who were in social innovation, like, post to your story. Our Gen Zers, everyone, I mean, we're like just checking in, like, just post to your story. Like, social media can be something that we use so often, but allow it to be the billboard so that people can know that you're taking your work seriously. If it wasn't for some of my initial friends that were like saying, yes, you can do this, I don't know if I had the confidence, to later on tell my parents, like, I have something that I believe is real. And you'll
Yeah.
fail. People might look at you and be like, "Oh, don't not even worrying about like those people who are like, oh, I thought you were doing this." Nope, nope. I'm here in my flesh, in my present self, focusing and putting my energy towards this. So we can talk
Yeah.
about it. You can check in with me, but when you take people seriously and show up and be present in rooms and environments, people are naturally going to respect that and want to help you so much more. Um, and that requires a level of being humble. Like, it's important to, like you said, you never know how much you can teach the next person, but always be willing to hear something that you may not like, or
I played football in college, high school, all that. And the one thing, I mean, I think sports teach you so much about life. And the one thing I always have taken away from is coachability, right? A coach is digging into you, and when they're digging into you, that's investment, right? They're investing in you. They are taking their time and energy to invest in you. Now, as an immature young man, you think, man, they don't like me, like they on me, all that, right? You're not seeing that they believe in you, and that's the reason that they're taking that time to invest in you. But the quickest thing to make somebody stop investing in you is not being coachable, not wanting to hear what they have to say, not processing the information, not making adjustments and changes, making the same mistakes over and over again. I think about it all the time now, man. I've people that are seeking mentorship, but they don't realize that mentorship's a two-way street. You got to show up to be mentored. I'm not going to chase you around town trying to get coffee on the calendar with you. There's when you talk about building a brand and really putting yourself out there, I think the first thing you need to do is learn to be, and I'm going to put it in air quotes, professional, and I think a lot of people hear, oh, be a professional, and they think put the suit on, and like, I'm not saying all that, right? Being a professional is about the little things, showing up on time, being courteous and kind, making sure to follow up, right? Being coachable, taking in that feedback, those things you don't want to hear, processing the information and making adjustments and changes where it feels natural to you. People give me feedback all the time. I ignore some of it and I adopt some of it. But I always analyze it, process it, and think about it, right? And I'm willing to take that information in. And I think when you do those little things, you come off as a professional. In terms of building a brand and putting yourself out there, I couldn't agree with you anymore. It's awkward though, right? And it's one of those things that I think, once again, as Black folk especially, like we're taught to be sort of very humble, and not brag or talk about ourselves and things along those lines. But something somebody told me really early on is nobody's gonna be your fan if you're not your own fan, right? Like if you're not willing to put yourself out there, and toot your own horn and speak up for yourself, then why would I go and speak up for you? I won't even know what you're doing. I won't even know what to speak on if you're not speaking on it yourself. And so I think it's super important to just know. I mean, there's a way to go about it. It's an art, not a science. But definitely put yourself out there. Brag on yourself. Talk about your accomplishments. Talk about your progress. Talk about your struggles. I think that's where authenticity comes in. Sometimes people paint this pretty picture, and it's not always pretty. And it's okay to be vulnerable and talk about those struggles too, right? Talk about the backslides and the things like that. Life is full of it. And I think adversity and overcoming adversity is what makes life beautiful.
Absolutely. So I want to ask this one question, and then we're going to definitely get into just understanding the current ecosystem for Black entrepreneurship. In terms of being present, like there's a saying I love, or it's something I really live by. Two people, sometimes even three, but two completely different people, when they give me the same advice about something, and I met them in different settings, then I have to at least think about it. I have to come back, no matter what I'm doing. Maybe I'm driving home, I'm chilling. It's something worth considering. If two completely different people give me advice about the same thing and it's in the same direction, that warrants a internal like discussion or monologue, and allowing yourself to be present in those moments where you can remember what they say, being present and being in these physical spaces as well can be so helpful. And I'm sure, with the event that you're going to tomorrow and similar in Baltimore, being in these rooms will unlock so much for you. Social capital sometimes can be just as important, especially starting out, as the financial capital. And you were at an amazing event. Black Tech Week happened. I think that was my birthday week. So, I mean, I call it my birthday month because, boy, I had a time last month. Uh, but that Black Tech Week, a recurring event in the middle of July every single year. Founders, don't miss out on this. There's ways for you to get there and attend the event for free. Was focused on congregating people in Cincinnati, Ohio, who are focused on building their business and getting access to funders. You sat on a panel. More than that, you were a key voice in spreading the mission that they have towards connecting Black founders to capital. Please share what Black Tech Week meant to you, what that panel was about, and just your overall feeling coming from that dope event.
Black Tech Week is, it's already blocked off on my calendar for next year, right? Like it's something you can't miss. I'm fortunate enough that Candace Matthews, Burkeen, and Brian Burkeen have pulled me in as a partner on Black Tech Week. So I'm able to sponsor the event and host different activations during the week. On behalf of my firm, Frost Brown Todd. And it's special. It's special. Last year was my first year involved. This year I kind of knew what to expect a little bit more, and was able to kind of add different value in different places. But the one thing I always focus on is throw some great parties, right? Because business and connection can happen when we're all just letting ourselves be vulnerable and have a good time. So we were able to rent out the MLS stadium in Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati, um, the TQL stadiums, what it's called, and we threw the opening reception on behalf of Black Tech Week there, and then we were able to host office hours. We rented out a brewery to host VC office hours to give folks a quiet space, a little outside of the chaos, to be able to connect with potential investment and really meet and greet those investors. We held some private activations, a bourbon tasting, things along those lines for some smaller groups. And then I was fortunate to be able to lead a session just based on some of the legal basics. Right. Once again, I think it's so important to think about the person just starting. Right. The folks that have been at it for a while, the education and the things that they need and that they're looking for are a little bit different, and if you've been at it for a little bit, you likely already have legal counsel. And so one of the things that I try to do is I always try to make my messaging and my information that I'm giving out uh, sort of geared towards those folks getting started, because nobody's really thinking about them. And they probably are the ones that don't have the finances yet to be able to afford legal counsel. And so, how can I make legal education accessible to folks in that idea stage or that pre-seed stage as they build their company, right? And so, I was able to just talk through some of the common legal mistakes that founders make, from forming an LLC over a Delaware C corp, and then trying to go get investment, and people be telling them they got to convert their company, to bringing on different advisors or different co-founders or early stage kind of employees, and not having them do an IP assignment, or giving them equity without a vesting schedule. All those different things that early on, if you don't know, you don't know, right? Nobody knows what they don't know. And so you just got to put that education out there. And so I was really fortunate to be able to do that. Had a great crowd for it, and uh, just look forward to continuing that partnership with Lightship Foundation, and supporting Black Tech Week as it continues to kind of roll on. And now we got the spin outs of Black Tech weekends, and Brian and Candace were able to announce the launching of their media company, which will sort of take the mission of Black Tech Week and expand upon it. And I'm just super proud of what they're able to accomplish. Super supportive of what they continue to accomplish and continue to do. And when you talk about look for helpers, there go two major helpers right there, and their whole team, are all helpers looking to just kind of elevate and amplify others in this community, and continue to bring folks to Tulsa, to Cincinnati, to Miami, and other places, Detroit, places where Black innovation is happening, and to try to show folks that there's talent everywhere, and it looks all types of ways. And so yeah, I mean that event. I feel like I was there yesterday. It's still a whirlwind, but it was great.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it was great.
Cincinnati's not just Kentucky. You can get some Kentucky fried chicken. Ooh,
Well, we know it's crazy, and not to go too off topic, but I love that it's held in Cincinnati because so Cincinnati is one of the blackest cities in the country. Not a lot of people know that, and one of the reasons why, right, is uh, the Ohio River runs right there on the border of Cincinnati and Kentucky. So it's right there. In the middle of the river is the Mason-Dixon line, right? And so a part of the journey for, escaped slaves, and then later on, in the Industrial Revolution, we had the Great Migration, uh, folks were crossing that river to get to cities like Cincinnati, that were safe havens at one point, for Black folk, and had a lot of factory jobs, mining jobs and mill jobs and things like that because it was right on the river. And so it's so cool to have it in that city that kind of represents at one point represented hope for Black people, right? And a new start. And I think, when you go to Black Tech Week, it feels like a family reunion. It feels like hope. You get to see how far we've come on this journey, and then you get to sort of take this education, take the recharge of your batteries, and then go back to wherever you came from to continue on trying to make that change, trying to make that impact, and try to keep pushing that ball down the line.
Love that. Thank you.
Quick question. So thank you for sharing about your experience and what you do to give back to, early stage entrepreneurs. I find it very interesting that you say that a lot of people tend to forget about them, because I feel like people forget about the entrepreneurs like myself and Michael, who find themselves a little bit further along than the ones that have just started, but yet are in a place where they've done everything they possibly could have, except they only need capital. And that's literally the make or break between the business taking off and them staying right where they are as a regular individual. They could be doing everything in the world, like spouting out from the rooftops, like Michael was on Twitter, LinkedIn, going everywhere, meeting you at Black Tech Week and all nine. But guess what? Mind stand is not here. So my thing is what do you say to those people who are at that point, right? Because I'm like, those are the real forgotten entrepreneurs. Those are the real people who really need the help, because it's like, at what point do we reach where mentorship is going to get us that check, right? What point do we reach where the resources and the advice that we get from all the different mentors that we have in our network get us to the next level? Because there's a cap at which you reach. We've reached that cap that we're at right now. So that's why we're trying to get the word out, trying to educate, because we know that by doing this gets us to that next level. So just want to hear your thoughts on that and how, you see that gap, right, for entrepreneurs, as far as, they've made it, they've done all the due diligence, they got all their stuff straight, but all they need is capital. So where do they go from here? Because that's like the major problem I see a lot of entrepreneurs face today, especially in our current economic environment.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, right? I think because of the sort of barriers to entry, right? You do have a lot of folks focused on the pre-seed and the seed stage. I think it's funny. 4 or 5 years ago, pre-seed and seed, I felt meant something a lot different. Like I never met anybody raising like a $2 million pre-seed round. But like pre-seed, you were thinking like a couple 100,000 maybe. But I think that's a direct reflection of what you're talking about. Folks are adjusting and adapting, knowing that they have a lot of eyes on them early, and they have a lot of folks focused on writing maybe smaller checks for earlier stage companies, and they're taking more early, right? Because why wouldn't I? If I know that when I get to that seed and start thinking about Series A, nobody might be checking for me anymore. So I need to take as much of this money now at the pre-seed stage, seed stage, to try to make sure I got the capital I need to really build this out. I don't think there's an easy answer. You know what I mean? Like it's literally the fact that entrepreneurship's hard. Startups are hard. Venture-backed startups are hard. It's a huge piece of who you know, being in the right place at the right time, and having the right innovation at the right time, right? And getting the buy-in that you need. And this goes back to sponsorship, right? Mentorship is one thing. Champions are a whole nother thing, and sponsorship is the last piece, right? And so, who's out there for you that's sponsoring you and that's championing for you, and that I think that's so important in terms of this conversation, right? Because there's a lot of mentors, a lot of people that sit with you and have coffee and talk about this stuff, but how many of them are moving the needle for you, right? Probably very few. You have a lot of mentors, you have very few champions and sponsors, and the hard part, I think, for anybody, and the hardest conversation I have with any founder is like, it's time to wrap this up. It's the end of the road. You know what I mean? But that is something that happens to our white counterparts too, right? Like you have some heat, you get the company to a certain point, and then maybe it fails, and then you take what you learned and you try to start again later on. It happens to us more, and we have way less access to capital. but it is like an unfortunate part of the journey at times. I think the thing that we can do is continue to have success stories, right? And I think it goes back to my point earlier. You know, it's a our the story of our people is a story of perseverance and of adversity, and this is just, you know, to your point, more adversity that we do have to persevere through. And I think with more success stories, with more successful exits, you know, with more people, with more, you know, the more that we can see black people at the NYSE, you know, taking their companies public, you know, things like that, right? You'll have, I think, more of that middle, from, you know, between that pre-seed seed to the later stage. Um, and I think we're just so early on this journey, right? We have so much farther to go, and I know it's frustrating. And you know, I'm frustrated, right? I see my clients go through it all the time, traveling the country, pitching, and getting, you know, a thousand no's. And uh, the I think the beautiful thing in that is watching them still succeed one way or another, right? Still saying, you know what, I don't have, I'm not getting this money from these VCs, but I'm going to go out, or I'm going to adjust my business model, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to make sales. I'm going to sell my product. I'm going to get users. I'm going to get traction. I'm going to get these things, right? Everything they say they need to see from me before they give me my dollars, I'm going to go get. You know what I mean? And watching that perseverance. And I just hope that over time, the you know, the barriers start to disappear. But I think we'll be waiting a while for sure. And you know, I mean, just not to get into it too deep, but I think the, you know, lawsuit against Fearless, right, is evidence of that. That it's going to be it's still an uphill battle. The dollars that we have earmarked for ourselves, they're trying to take that away too. You know, and so it's just the story, I think, of our people in this country. You know, nothing will come easy, but we will continue to do more with less. We will continue to persevere. We'll continue to be successful. We'll continue to shine, and they'll continue to hate on it. And it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
at a certain point, it is what it is, and that's why, once again, I'm gonna bring everything back to it. It's so important for us to do right by us and to support us, man. Like that's why it's important.
So a month before Mindstand had to dissolve, eventually, you know, we got liquidation, acquisition, whichever words. A month before, at Black Tech Week last year, a founder who has raised venture capital told me that it's more than likely that our company would end up dissolving. Chopping it up, him and his company hosted an event. When I heard that, I was over here trying to get him on like a podcast guest appearance. Like the idea that that would happen just didn't sound right to me. I sat with it, but I knew I had to keep running my business. Literally 26 days later, you know, we were faced with circumstances that forced us. We did have, you know, investments like a $150,000 accelerator with a check tied to it that we could have participated in. Conversations from so many people, especially lawyers, about pro bono. Let's look at how we can restructure this. People on our payroll, you know, that real hard decisions we had to make. But I couldn't stop thinking about that conversation that uncovered, you know, the fact that where we are these many years in, the state of the technology, and what plans we had, we'd be risking so much. I would be risking so much carrying this company on my back through a recessive market, just trying to see us get to the next round of funding. And a year removed, what day are we now? August 10th. I think it was August 11th last year. You know, we got that news. I am just reflective and happy, you know, that everything that happened because I can be able to connect and still talk and build. You know, I wasn't able to be the best AI B2B founder, but I'm going to be the best technical business analyst in this side of Maryland that anyone's ever seen, especially at my age. And Black excellence can't be contained. So having a mentor, having someone that can sit down and tell me the truth, you know, that now I can spit game to y'all and hopefully have it like connect, you know, is everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's real. I mean, Michael, how old are you?
25.
25 years old, man. You gonna start another company and blow up. You know what I'm saying? Be a unicorn, right? Like, I think the one thing that I appreciate is that, like, when you look at the percentages across the board, not just even black founders, right? You look at all founders.
Right.
The success is unlikely, right? It is the probability is not in your favor, right? And so, and when you go to black founders, it becomes even smaller chance of success. So I think to believe that you will be, because going into it, you know that, right? It was like me playing football. I knew that there's this 0.00001% chance I make it to the NFL. But to make it there, you got to be crazy enough to believe you will. You got to be passionate enough to put everything you have into it. Because if you don't do that much, you'll never make it, right? And so I do think, and one thing that I'm very avid in supporting is uh, folks chasing, right? Chase it, go after it, believe in it until you can't, and then come to, like you said, you came to grips with reality. You did what you had to do. You sit back here reflective. You cannot pay for the experience that you had running that company and going through everything you went through. You are so much smarter and so much better for it. Now you transition into corporate America and you're learning so much through your work in corporate America. You're going to be a hundred times better founder the next time around than you were the last time around. And you were pretty successful the last time around. So imagine how good you're going to be the next time around, right? And like that's the story of entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? The story of entrepreneurship is failure. The story of, in my opinion, life is failure. We have to fail to learn. We have to fail to grow. I've never, ever, 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 ever grown in a moment where I was getting an award or being told that I was great. I just was like, yeah, you know what? I am great. I ain't gonna change a single thing. You know what I mean? I've always grown in the moments where I failed. I've always grown in the moments where I felt attacked or under siege, right? Because in those moments, I have to take a step back. I have to look at what happened. I have to analyze. I have to grow. I have to become better to in order for that failure to not happen again. So embracing the failure, I think, is an important piece of it all. And failure has such a negative connotation. I think it's a positive word. It's just up to us to reframe it that way, um, and understand that success can look like failure sometimes.
Hmm. Derek, thank you so much. This has been one of the, another special conversation that we're having here at Why Y'all Working, understanding why you work, your background, your goals, and how you're able to connect people. I'd be remiss, Alairé, I want to make sure you can ask some questions, especially about the Black VC space. I do want to share just to make sure we're hitting that thumbnail name, YouTube video name about a current lawsuit that's evolving around us today, spun from the Supreme Court district ruling to remove a term we use called affirmative action that's largely been branded and polarized as, but removed the ability to include race as a factor in deciding the admissions for accepted college students. This happened in our Supreme Court less than a month ago, and now we're seeing a lawsuit handled by a group. I'm not going to share the group, but they have filed a lawsuit at the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, alleging that Fearless Fund, a Black woman-owned VC firm that's deployed over $26.5 million and awarded over 346 grants worth $3 million. They are actively being sued in a lawsuit alleging that they're providing grants to Black women to grow their businesses violates new federal civil rights law. Um, Fearless Fund and their amazing group of founders and supporters have been able to begin working with well-known, nationally known civil rights attorney Ben Crump and the Global Black Economic Forum in order to dispel this as just simple. They even use the word frivolous, simple attacks that seem to be consistent with 1% of all venture capital being funded towards Black and Brown founders. This Fearless Fund team has clearly taken a step and a stance in saying that they won't back down, they won't be scapegoated, and they won't be held to standards that other Americans have never been held to before, and trying to provide dedicated funding to the business owners and the employers within their communities. So um, it's a very interesting and unique story, and it really brings us to conversations around Black VC. Again, you have such a great experience, Derek, in the Midwest space. Alairé and I have worked, from East Coast to Miami to West to Silicon Valley. Just a really good space to be. You want to set the table there?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm going to take a long way of getting there to my point. So bear with me. In 1925, almost 100 years ago, 11, 9 or 11, I can't remember, Black attorneys got together and they created the National Bar Association because the American Bar Association would not allow Black attorneys to become members. The National Bar Association is now the largest association of Black attorneys in the country. Ben Crump is an active member and is a well celebrated member of the National Bar Association, and is often at the conferences and things along those lines. Uh, the role that the National Bar Association has played in creating organizations like the ACLU and other organizations that fight for the civil liberties of underrepresented groups in this country has been pivotal. You can pretty much relate every single advancement of Black people since 1925 to the organization and their members, right? So, saying all of that, um, this is yet another page in the story of the way that the American legal system has been utilized to, hold us back as people, right? It's a story that has been going on since our time entering this country as property and not people, and every step of the way since then. So, while I won't speak on the merits of the case or anything like that, as it's kind of actively going on, and I'll hold off on that. What I will say is that the people at the forefront of this battle have been at the forefront of all of these battles, right? They were at the forefront of the recent Supreme Court decisions. They were they're at the forefront of our continued requests for equal treatment from law enforcement, and so on and so forth, right? So I sit here feeling confident that the best at what they do are aware and are working to ensure that this most latest attack on our abilities to enjoy and participate in the ecosystem and in the economy will fail. Right, the attack will fail because we have some of our strongest battling alongside Fearless. And I'm so happy that they took the stance that they took. I'm so happy that they got the counsel that they got, and I am anxious to watch how this plays out and to watch what happens. I hope it backfires, as many of these cases have in history, and sets precedent that stops any case like this from coming again, and opens up new pathways. I hope it starts a national conversation around that 1%. I hope they bring more media coverage to this 1%, to the fact that it's only 1%, and it changes things. It brings more investment to our people. I hope that folks in Silicon Valley and in Austin, Texas, and New York City and across the ecosystem, I hope they stand next to Fearless. I hope those allies, as they call themselves and as they purport themselves to be, show up, and they also start to invest more into underrepresented founders, and they show that you can file these lawsuits, and you can do these things, you can have these attacks, but we won't let it break us as a ecosystem. The one thing I love about Black Tech Week is there are a lot of white people there, right? It's a Black event, and the majority is Black, but there are white people there supporting and mentoring and investing back into our ecosystem. And so, I hope positive comes out of this as often, it does, right? You look at a lot of our battles that we've had to battle throughout history, and, just like back in 1925 when those folks were uh, not able to join the American Bar Association because of the color of their skin, they triumphed by creating the National Bar Association, which has had a profound impact on our society, on our culture, and on our country. Imagine if they would have been allowed to just join the American Bar Association and they were muzzled or silenced, and not able to create the impact that they ultimately created. Typically when we are given less, we make more. And so, anxious to see the decision, anxious to see how it comes out, anxious to see how it impacts things. I really do hope it starts more of a national conversation around why only 1% of venture capital money goes to Black and brown founders. And I hope it changes things for the better. And that's all I can be is hopeful. I was angry at first, and I almost sent a few tweets that I had to hold off on. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, let them fly.
Let them fly. But
I'm all for it.
but it's one of those things that I do truly believe in the council that they've retained. And
I ain't got much to say on this topic for real. I'm gonna be completely honest. This reminds me of when DE&I was a thing that was used to distract us during the pandemic. A lot of money went into all these slosh funds that went to all these white corporations and came from supposed allies, went to Black people and minorities in these diversity, equity, and inclusion positions, and they weren't given any real power to do anything with the money. Matter of fact, I don't even think they had the keys to the money to begin with. So when we think about that, in most cases, especially in one of the organizations that we joined or were accepted in, is like we get accepted into this accelerator program, but there's no real support for the accelerator program to begin with. It's another, quasi just here's a little token, right? Just a piece of paper that says we're doing this thing, but there's no actual physical thing behind it. The kente cloth thing that all the congressmen and women did that one time when they all got on the knee and did the thing. What did that do for us? Like, you know what I mean? It's the same thing over and over again. So when I hear stuff like, we're suing Fearless because of affirmative action, I'm like, well, this is just deja vu when I look at it. I hear from a lot of Black entrepreneurs that have been jaded by the industry. They're like, well, I don't even want to go to minority led funds anymore because the money is not even coming from minorities to begin with, which means, again, they're not going to be in our best interest in the first place. We have to make sure that they are servicing their LPs. If they are servicing their LPs, then cool, by investing in everybody else. But most oftentimes, that's not going to happen. They don't want you investing in the public. They're going to put you right back with the same deal flow that they themselves and their friends invested in AT16Z and all those other firms to begin with. So we were supposed to, have made leaps and bounds for whatever industries that this money was given to. None of that happened. It just went away. Let's be real. Any VC that's in any type of red state or any type of leaning, conservative state is going to be attacked by this. It's not just Fearless. You hope this blows up in their face. Let's be real here. Let's think about it. Who is in power when it comes to your ultimate pinnacle of where your job goes, right? Because you're thinking about the Supreme Court. They're going to take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will hear it. And yes, to your point, it will be a monumental discussion around why the 1% is the way that it is. But guess what? The answer is still going to be the same. And once I see that, I'm like, unless there's going to be a real change in that demographic of people who are going to vote in that other direction, we're just going to see Fearless Fund get closed down, regardless of how much effort the National, Bar Association goes through to get this done. I'm going to commend them on the work that they're going to do. I'm not saying that they're not going to push the needle forward, get the word out and all of that. When we look at who runs society and what the information is going to go to and where all this money is going to go, bro, they're going to use the money to suppress this issue. Documentation is going to be done, but let's say it's only going to be us that has access to the information. And again, the same problem happens. Everybody else that doesn't necessarily have access to layman's, that don't have access to this information, won't have it. They won't understand. They'll get the media side of things, right? And we'll be left here trying to pick up the pieces and explain to them, this is actually a bigger issue than what it is. Same thing with DE&I. And that's why I'm like, look, this is the same issue that we're seeing twofold. Where's the money going? VC's talking about, oh yeah, we need to invest in our own population, but steadily investing in Africa, right? Developing country, developing nations. When I'm like looking at this and I'm seeing these differences and similarities, like, oh, why are our own VC dollars going into another nation for what? They want to colonize and do all these things in a new modern way. Way to do that is through VC. So that's my 2 cents on that.
What I'll say is I hear the frustration, my brother, and I
Yeah.
feel the frustration, and I feel the anger, and I love the passion. First, what I'll say, and just to I guess for a nugget to anybody out there still listening to us ramble on, is what the Supreme Court said is that race could not be a determining factor in admissions, right? They didn't say it couldn't be a factor. They said it couldn't be a determining factor. I don't think the Supreme Court case has done everything that the media has said it's done. I think you can still take perspective and background and other things into account. I do not believe that a lot of universities will actually be as impacted by the decision as the media and some have made it out, in my humble opinion. And I think similarly, if this does go to the Supreme Court, one, that takes a long time. Keep that in mind.
Right.
Very long time. Could be a different court by then, just saying. People do be old.
Right.
But even if it does get there, right, the precedent that's been set so far is not this great, you'll never be able to tell me that I can't invest in who I want to invest in my opinion, right? That just doesn't make sense. There's still social clubs in this country that are allowed to exclude us based on the fact of, because it's a social club, they're allowed to include who they want to include. There's certain things I think in this country that are limited in happening. I think this attack, more than anything, is like a test of resources, right? I'm going to drag you through this lawsuit and see if you quit. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely an attack of resources. Fearless ain't got no quitting them. They picked the wrong one. I mean, their name's Fearless. You should have
Yeah. Right.
One, picked the wrong one. And what they don't know is you don't mess with a black woman. And they messed with the wrong group of black women. For sure. And so, once again, I think in creating a national conversation and putting a bigger spotlight on the issue, I think something positive can come out of it. I hear you on, is it going to be some great change? No, but I do think we were, people were able to capitalize on sort of the great DEI rush that came, post 2020 and the tragedies that occurred during 2020. I think that you saw some funds emerge out of that. People that are doing really good things in our community that got starts out of that. I think you see folks that were able to elevate and advance themselves in corporate America and are now able to make a difference within their companies. But I guess what I'm saying is that, once again, looking for the opportunity to continue to move the ball forward. I understand it's going to be inch by inch. I understand that it should be, mile by mile, and that we should be a lot farther than we are. But what do we gain from throwing our hands up in the air and saying this is, got to take what we can take inch by inch. And if we got to dig and grind our way through every single inch, that's what we'll do, because that's what we always done. It's tough, and it's an unfortunate reality, and it's something, if you think about it too hard, you ask yourself, what's the reason? Why am I working? Right? You ask yourself that reason, but once again, I think if you bring it back to focusing on that small impact and focusing on the wins that we can get and the way that we can move things forward, and always keeping perspective in mind, while there are similarities to where we sat in 1925, 1945, 1965, 1985, and today, I do believe that you also can see the progress from along that way. I'm hopeful that in 2023, they'll look back 100 years and they'll say, man, like, we're not far enough, but man, are we a lot farther than they were in 2023? I have to believe that that's a future, you know what I mean? Or else, to Michael's point, there's no reason for me to wake up at 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. every day and get my day started and grind towards trying to contribute my inch to this journey, on behalf of our people. So, in your frustration, in your passion, take that, let it motivate you, and continue to push, man. Continue to push, continue to grind, continue to do what you can do to impact the person next to you, the person behind you. That passion, that fire, that's what keeps us going. If we didn't have it, that we we probably wouldn't be as far as we are today. So, you know what I'm saying, keep it moving, and look for those opportunities to capital. Like I always say, I look for opportunities to capitalize over it, right? When you know the game and you know the game they're playing and you know the game that's getting played against us, it's easy to then know how I'm gonna play the game back, right?
Exactly.
It's chess. I'm making moves that I know will end up benefiting me, end up benefiting my community, end up benefiting my family. I think keeping that in mind, and just trying to continue to be authentic and yourself, and continue to support the community. I mean, that's why y'all are doing this. I love it. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm supporting it. It's for us, by us, and it's great what y'all are doing, and I'm excited to watch future episodes and maybe return in the future when I got a few more gray hairs and tell y'all how I'm doing on my journey.
Stranger, anything to promote, shoot. It sounds like a media company is coming together with the whole Light Ship Black Tech Week thing. If they throwing deals, we can talk or
I
promote.
don't I don't make those decisions, and I don't know if I got the pool and the connect for you, but I'll always do what I can do to support y'all and to help y'all. Alairé, it was great to meet you today.
Same here. Appreciate it.
Michael, always glad to see you, brother. I'll be, I'm in the DMV quite often, so I mean we're overdue for a connect. So I'll definitely hit you next time I'm coming down.
Please follow you on LinkedIn, again, Twitter, any places that people can just continually get this knowledge that you shared with us today.
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure. You see the name, on the thumb tag and all that kind of stuff. Look it up at D Maultsby 53 on Twitter. I don't have any other social media. No Facebook, no Instagram, no Thread, none of that. So, find me in those two places, and I'm speaking at things constantly, and some of them are virtual and open to the public. So always feel free to tap in and ask the questions you have. And as always, I tell people, reach out. If you Google my name, you can find my firm website bio, has my email in it. If you have questions or you need assistance in any which way, and I can be a resource. I would love to help out, and give you my 2 cents for what it's worth. And yeah, no, I mean it's this is a great conversation. Hour 20 went by pretty quick.